Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you to the Sedona City Council Candidate Forum on the August 4th primary ballot. Our forum is being hosted by the League of Women Voters, Greater Verde Valley, and sponsored by the Sedona Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau. My name is Mary Shaquin, a member of the League of Women Voters, and your moderator for this forum. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization which envisions a democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and confidence to participate. In these new times, we do not have an audience, but Verde Valley TV is videotaping the forum. The video will play on Cable 1, Channel 56, Suddenlink Channel 2, and the Verde Valley TV YouTube channel, as well as other social media outlets and websites. The purpose of this forum is for the audience to get to hear from the candidates on why they want to be a council member for the city of Sedona. Over the last several weeks, we have solicited and gathered questions via email from the public to present to the candidates. The goal of this forum is fairness, civility, and engagement. Our timekeeper for today's forum is Mary Gassaway. Her role is to keep us on time. She has a 1-minute sign, a 30-second sign, and a stop sign. She will raise the 1-minute sign, then the 30-second sign to tell you how much time you have left, and finally she will raise the stop sign to signal you to end your sentence. Time limits on responses to questions will be strictly observed. I, as the moderator, will have the responsibility of enforcing the time limits. We ask 4 things of the candidates. Be respectful of each other's points of view, speak your mind freely, do not engage in personal attacks, and do not interrupt one another. Our candidates for the Sedona City Council in alphabetical order are Kathy Kinsella, Ed LaRue, Holly Plug, and Jessica Williamson. The format for this afternoon's forum will have 3 parts. The first part will include opening remarks and a league and chamber question. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for introductory remarks. This will be followed by 3 minutes to respond to the question from the League of Women Voters, Greater Verde Valley, and 3 minutes to respond to a question from the Sedona Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau. Part 2 is questions from the community. Candidates will have 1.5 minutes to address each question, depending on the number of questions to be covered and the time available. We received more than 50 questions in response to our requests. I invite the community to contact the candidates directly if you have questions that were not answered or if you would like further information. Finally, part 3 is closing remarks. Each candidate will have 1 minute to share final remarks on why he or she wants to serve the citizens of Sedona. We will now begin with opening statements. The candidates will speak for 3 minutes. They drew their name, the order of speaking prior to the forum. So our first to speak will be Holly Plug.
Thank you, Mary. And I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this candidate forum. My husband, Bert, and I have lived in Sedona for 7 years. We first visited Sedona in 1993, and when we were considering retirement options, the Red Rocks called and we couldn't resist. I'm concerned that Sedona, which is called the most beautiful place on earth, faces many challenges to keep its magic alive. I want to provide hands-on leadership addressing our most pressing issues: traffic and transportation, affordable housing for workers and families, short-term rentals, diminishing water resources and environmental vulnerability, financial management, and increased benefits to our residents. Given our current situation with a pandemic of increasing proportions, our priorities may change. I view this as an opportunity to set a new vision for Sedona by reinventing how our city functions to be more resilient economically, environmentally, and socially. I'm deeply dedicated to this community, I believe in the Rotarian principle of service above self. My volunteer activities demonstrate my service. I am currently president of the Sedona Arts Center, former president of the Rotary Club of Sedona, past president of the Coalition Against Human Trafficking Northern Arizona, board member of the Sedona Women and the Verde Valley Imagination Library, and recipient of the 2018 Spirit of Sedona Volunteer of the Year Award. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica?
Excuse me. Hi, I'm Jessica Williamson, and I'm running for re-election to the City Council. First, I want to thank the League for hosting this forum. I've lived in Sedona for 17 years now, and I live in West Sedona behind the library with my husband and my dog. Being on City Council has been a humbling experience, challenging too. The issues which we deal with are often very technical and complex, and even those that seem pretty straightforward at first glance, there's a lot of details. I'm running for re-election because I'm committed to doing what I can to ensure a healthy and vibrant future for our community. It's imperative as a city that as a city we face issues and not kick the can down the road. The Council has tackled a number of the most pressing challenges facing Sedona, and I want to ensure that those initiatives move forward. The Council sets priorities and votes on proposals to implement those priorities. The reality is that every priority is controversial to some extent. There are people who agree and people who disagree, often vehemently. It can be challenging to make decisions in that environment, yet that is City Council's job. I'm very careful about the decisions I make, and I am willing to make those decisions in a timely manner. Before every single vote, I ask myself, what is in the best interests of the city of Sedona? Because we've been conservative in budgeting over the years, our financial situation is very strong, even with the reduction in revenue caused by COVID-19. We will be able to continue to provide the services our residents have come to rely on by freezing non-essential expenditures and delaying the start of new projects. Finally, the global pandemic has brought us to an extraordinary place. Most of us have not experienced a crisis like this in our lifetimes. There are no silver bullets, there are no magic formulas for getting through this without consequences and getting through this fast. Our human desire for answers and for assurance is being sorely tested. Conditions change daily, almost hourly sometimes, and it's challenging to adapt quickly to the way the virus is moving through our society. Public health remains my primary goal. It makes sense to me to listen to scientists who are working with the virus every day and adopt prevailing scientific public health recommendations. We can't run away from this pandemic, and it is reckless to deny the risks it poses. It's prudent to face the realities, recognize the dangers posed by the virus, and take reasonable and measured steps to contain its spread. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed? Ed?
Hello. Hi, I'm Ed. Nice to meet you guys. Thank you very much for Mary and the League of Women's Voters for setting this up. This is like incredible, and thank you very much for inviting us to come speak. Thank you. So I have a little anxiety right now, so I just kind of wanted to maybe do a prayer meditation, kind of everything. I'm very thankful to be in this room, and I hope that we can all come together and work together to serve this beautiful city. And may I ask that the thoughts in our minds and the feelings in our hearts and the words that come out of our mouths be fitting and acceptable before the people of Sedona, and that we can come together to leave this beautiful city a better place than before we came here. And I think everyone in this room wants to do that as well. So I'm Eddie, nice to meet you guys. I'm a write-in candidate because I'm a Gemini, and that also means that I'm a procrastinator. So I'm not gonna be on the ballot. So I think my name is like on the screen. It's Ed LaRue, Larrieu. If you want to vote for me, that'd be cool. And you just got to write it in. I'm with Artists for Sedona, and our major thing is, maybe do some things in Sedona that make it easier for artists to thrive in this community. And, this is a vibrant arts hotspot, and, maybe there's some things that we can do to kind of increase that a little bit. And we got some, a couple cool ideas for generating revenue for the city. We have a plan that I think it might work to generate $30 to $45 million in excess or increased city revenues to be used for a multitude of different things to be put back into the arts, as well as building affordable worker housing, which I think is an important thing in this community. Right now, there's a lot of people that work at the various shops and restaurants that cannot afford to live here. And I think we as a city can do a little bit better to bring an affordable living situation to the city of Sedona and have sort of a more inclusive kind of community. Just things like that. We're also, we're open to new ideas of how to make this community better. And I would like to work with everybody who has ideas of cool things that we can be doing and see if we could implement some of those. Yep, that's me. Nice to meet you guys. And thank you very much, League of Women Voters of the Greater Verde Valley. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for setting this up.
Thank you, Ed. Kathy.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters Greater Verde Valley, to the Chamber of Commerce, to the Marriott, and of course to Verde Valley TV. Couldn't reach the voters without all of you supporting this event, so thank you for that. I would like to tell you a little bit about my background and what it is that I can bring to the Sedona City Council. My wife, Chris, and I bought our home here over 10 years ago, and we spent the first 6 years as part-timers going back and forth to New York. And we've lived here for over 4.5 years now, full-time. We came out here after I retired, but I've never been busier since coming out here into Sedona retirement. My background is government service. Before moving to Sedona full-time, I was a superintendent of highways in a town called Rhinebeck in New York State. I was elected to 5 different terms of 2 years each, running the town's public works agency. I oversaw capital project planning, budgeting, personnel, and service delivery to our citizens. Before that, I had worked for the New York State Assembly as a communications director, and before that, I actually ran the New York City agency that was responsible for land use and development decisions, coordinated review, city services delivery, and permitting for Midtown Manhattan. And I was able to work on all sorts of different projects, from large-scale redevelopment of Times Square, Columbus Circle, to individual service delivery to the people who lived in that neighborhood. It's that varied government background that I think has provided very strong experience for me to bring to the Sedona City Council. As I said before, I've never been busier since moving out here. I'm currently the vice chair of the Sedona City Planning and Zoning Commission. I recently stepped down as the president of this very League of Women Voters Greater Verde Valley chapter. I serve on the board of PFLAG. I'm a neighborhood coordinator for the Green Bag Food Program. I am a founding member of the Sedona Action Network and one of the original organizers of the Sedona Women's March. And I serve on my homeowners association, and I basically coordinate a lot of the capital projects. So that's my background, and now I'm here asking for voters to support my run for the Sedona City Council. The decision to become a candidate was not one that I took lightly. I'm involved in the city in many ways, and my interests all converge in local government. I have a background that well prepares me for this role. Experience has taught me that it's possible to step up, be a voice, and make a difference. There are challenges that Sedona faces as we move ahead with addressing traffic and transit, housing needs, climate crisis, and its impact on our city and beyond, and the recreation needs of our entire community, from youth to seniors. I see these issues as being interconnected, and I want to bring my experience to the table to make good decisions for our community and for our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first question has been provided by the League of Women Voters, Greater Verde Valley, and the candidates received this question ahead of time. The candidates will have 3 minutes to answer this. Jessica, we will begin with you. And the question is, what is your perspective on racial equity and community policing as related to Sedona and the Verde Valley? When we gave the question, we also provided a few questions as food for thought. How would you describe the relationship between local police and police of color in Sedona and the Verde Valley? What actions will you take to ensure police treat people equitably? What would be your response to evidence of wrongdoing? And how do you think citizens in Sedona can act locally and positively to address the serious issue of racial equity? Jessica.
Thank you, Mary. What we're seeing in response to the recent killings of men and women of color throughout the country by police officers has been long in coming and is tragically overdue. Police officers have an enormous amount of power, and with that comes a profound obligation to keep communities safe while embracing the sanctity of life. The culture of police departments can include both the positive self-image of community service and the negative inclination to see policing as them versus us. I spoke to Charles Husted, chief of Sedona's police department, who tells me they haven't had any complaint of racial bias in the year he's been here. He's committed to community policing and to reinforcing a departmental culture that focuses on shared humanity and and protection of life. That's what I'm looking for in a police department. He's taking a number of steps to ensure the focus is reflected in every aspect of police operation. The Manual of Procedures is being thoroughly revised to reflect up-to-date police procedures and ensure clarity for officers. I have allergies. As part of that effort, the use of force policy is being revised to emphasize de-escalation, the sanctity of life, and the need to employ the lowest level of force required in a situation. Chokeholds aren't permitted. The police department has not sought or accepted military surplus equipment, and the chief said he had no interest in doing that at this time. All the officers are trained in dealing with mental illnesses and have crisis intervention training, but they need more training. They work with the crisis team that Spectrum Health provides when they need it. That program needs to be expanded to more fully meet the needs of our community. I support the use of body cams by our police department personnel, and the department is planning on testing that equipment in the field next year. All of us have a responsibility to address injustices resulting from racism. For myself, that means examining my biases toward people of color and toward the police. I don't, and I think it's very important not to accept casual racism from people we know. It's important to acknowledge that it's not an either-or choice, either that you either support police or support those alleging police misconduct. I support the police and also recognize that sometimes police act improperly. And when they do, that needs to be addressed. Police have an enormous power. It's up to us to ensure they use that power responsibly to protect all of us.
Thank you. Ed?
Oh, I'm next. How many minutes do we have for the answer to this question?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. All right, let's get to business. Nice to meet you guys. All right, so this is an interesting question. I am a member of several cop watch organizations and have been members of those organizations for years. And this is one of the things I'm very, very passionate about and excited about is that there is a massive change in the way policing is done. That's happening across the board in the United States, and it's been happening over the last 3 years. And it's getting a lot better than it was when I was growing up. I came from an area that had a significant amount of discrimination, profiling, predatory police tactics, and a lot of innocent people going to jail. And I was fortunate enough to live next to a police captain who is a captain of another jurisdiction that had a massive problem with the way policing was done in my area, and he was able to coach some of myself, my friends, in ways to keep ourselves safe, because it was a situation where you couldn't solve the problem. Complaints were answered by the department managers, the department people that were doing the things to the people, violating their civil rights. So there is a massive problem with people's rights being violated. I think systemically because people aren't aware of their rights. They're not taught it in school, which they should be, I think. I mean, this is high school level stuff right here. What are the laws of the society you live in, and what are your rights, and how do you do that? I mean, Harvard University has tons and tons and tons of free information. Live recordings of their classes. It's the top information, in academia, and it's free to the public. I mean, we should probably, have our, kids in the schools watch this stuff, 8-hour, videos. So from what I understand, the majority of people that are in prison and jail go there for things like traffic stops, and then the encounter being taken beyond the traffic stop. It's called going beyond the scope of the stop. Someone's pulled over for headlights or tinted windows, and then it turns into an interrogation of, hey, anything to drink tonight? Do you have anything in your car I shouldn't be, I should be aware of? Where are you going to? Where are you coming from? All this kind of stuff. So this is called going beyond the scope of the stop, and it's quite frankly illegal. And the state of Oregon has made it, has put laws against it, that if officers go beyond the scope of the stop in order to find things that are wrong that weren't necessarily there, they could get fired for it. And that's what the majority of people are being caught up in right now. I mean, I wish we had more time to talk about this issue. Definitely body cameras are extremely important, and it is 2020. There was an officer-involved shooting in Sedona a couple of months ago, and the fact that we do not have an objective documentation of what happened with that is alarming, and it should be alarming to everybody. This is 2020. We need body cameras, and the fact that we don't have them is absolutely unacceptable. But
thank you.
Beyond that, I like to say that the police department here is pretty darn good, and I've worked with them a lot. So,
Kathy.
Thank you. Well, I truly do hope that we are at a watershed moment in this country in regards to equality, racial inequality, and community policing. There is an unfortunate presence of systemic racism in our culture, and sometimes discrimination isn't even recognized because it's just so built in. We need to all become more aware of that. And we need to understand that there are inherent inequities in our criminal justice system. That being said, I am an advocate of the community policing model. The goal should be to problem solve versus to problem punish. Police need to be the first line of help and assistance through the use of partnerships and problem-solving techniques. The rise of community policing over the last 10 years has coincided with a drop in crime across most of the country. And this has been documented by various law enforcement professionals, including the FBI. In Sedona, we do have a good model of community policing. I've worked with our police department, as I mentioned in my opening statement. I've organized a lot of the events and marches here in Sedona. We have liaised with the police every step of the way to make sure that public safety is ensured and the #1 priority. Each time it's been a partnership and working together. That is one of the main principles of community policing. It's a commitment to community empowerment and recognizing grassroots creativity and support to work together. I see that here in Sedona, but I recognize that it is not the case in many, mostly larger communities. Trust is an important factor, and like any relationship, it takes time and familiarity to build trust. I think body cams are one of the tools by which we can do that. I think they should be mandatory. I think when you know what your police department's perspective is out there and you have that documentation, it's very important in building trust, understanding what happened in particular circumstances. When I worked for New York City, one of the things I did was hosted a monthly meeting that included police precincts in my district, there were 4 of them, specialized departments, the alternative justice court, block association representatives, homeless services representatives, and other community groups. It was a helpful way to facilitate communication and to get people working together. I would like to see that communication replicated. I believe that trust can be built when community members and police departments work together, have open communication, and make sure that it's a team. That needs to include mental health providers, those trained in dealing with substance abuse, service organizations, all need to be present when responding in situations. It's the role of local governments that have police forces to make sure that police training includes an understanding of mental health issues and sensitivity and cultural diversity.
Thank you. Holly.
This is a timely question, and I really appreciate the League of Women Voters for asking us this question. To give you a little background, when I was in high school, I became active in the civil rights movement, and I worked towards achieving racial equality in housing, employment, and other areas of discrimination based on race. I have continued working in these areas throughout my career. After graduating from law school, my first job was as a staff attorney for a commission on sentencing inequities in the state of Alaska. A study had been conducted by the state which revealed that minorities were sentenced, all things being equal, 500 to 800% higher than white people. And the only single factor that was different was their race. And that was in 1980. So here we are today in 2020, and the American justice system is still plagued with racial inequalities in law enforcement, but also in prosecution, sentencing, and probation and parole. So let's talk about Sedona and the Verde Valley. Our last publicized incident in the Verde Valley was 10 years ago, when a nursing student from Senegal was returning home at night on Beaverhead Flats Road and was stopped for speeding. It was dark, and she had read about recent incidents where there were police officers who were not really police officers making stops, and she wanted to move her vehicle to a lighted area. A series of unfortunate events happened after that, and ultimately she was charged with 3 felonies and convicted by an all-white jury. The judge in the case, having listened to all the evidence, gave her no jail time for these 3 felony convictions, but they stayed on her record, and for 7 years she fought to have that record expunged and was ultimately successful. The case prompted many local people to share their stories of police intimidation. So it can and has happened here. Now that was the sheriff's department, and we have, advanced since then, different sheriff in place. But recently we had an incident, which was mentioned a few minutes ago, where 2 Sedona police shot and killed an unstable man who was wielding a machete. This case is still under investigation. Was shooting the only option? I think we need to ask ourselves these questions. Are we fairly treating people in our community, whether they're a member of a minority group or in need of mental health services? Are we recruiting officers of the right temperament? Are we training them in mental health and crisis intervention? Are there programs we can implement or utilize in the Sedona Police Department or the prosecutor's office that can divert people out of the justice system?
Thank you, Holly. The next question, the candidates will also have 3 minutes to answer, and it has been provided by the Sedona Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau, and the candidates did receive this question ahead of time, and Ed, we will begin with you on this question. In the most recent National Citizen Survey, 90% of residents rated the city as an excellent or good place to live. Now, as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, Sedona's economy, businesses, employees, events, and city have suffered grievously. The cost in dreams dashed, family finances depleted, School or career plans postponed or obliterated simply cannot be calculated. Pre-COVID, our most critical industry, tourism, was on target to generate $20 million in revenues for the city. As an example, 77% of the city sales tax collections, which pays for essential services residents need and provides 10,000 area jobs. Now this has been severely damaged. What are your views on the Chamber's efforts to balance quality of life, the environment, and tourism? If your view is positive, what do you specifically like about the Chamber's direction? If your view is negative, how do you intend to safeguard revenues to maintain quality of life services, businesses, and jobs? Ed?
Thank you so much for this question. I wanted to add something to the prior question, and I apologize. I just wanted to say Black Lives Matter, and that's very important, and we should not forget that. All right, and regarding this, so I'm kind of hearing like conflicting opinions. I know there was a devastation several months ago with the initial lockdowns, but then I'm also hearing that they're expecting an increase in tourism this year because so many other tourist destinations are shut down. Pink Jeeps, I think, is having like excellent, rates. There's more tourists coming here than there usually is at this time of year. So, but I think we have to do everything possible to keep these businesses running, and the city should definitely. I know they've like restricted advertising for Sedona as a tourist destination in other cities that are having spikes of COVID. It's probably, a good idea, yet Sedona, for whatever reason, has been accepting tourists from New York, California, DC, Detroit, Chicago, Atlanta, LA, and we have an extremely low amount of hospitalizations with the COVID. So I think this is maybe one of these things that we should probably get an advisor who knows what they're talking about, and just check out the science. Is it safe to have tourists here? And if it is, let's get them here and keep things going. As far as revenue, one of the ideas that we were proposing, throwing around, was putting a $3 a day hotel tax and Airbnb tax. So I think there's 5 million tourists coming to Sedona a year, and let's say they stay for an average of 2 to 3 nighs. If we have a $3 a day hotel tax and Airbnb tax, they stay 2 nights, it's $6. It's not a lot of money. And it could generate $30 to $45 million a year. That's a nice big fund. So Sedona is, everyone likes to say this is a small town, there's 10,000 residents, but we're having millions and millions and millions, what is it, 3 to 5 million tourists a year. This is a big city. And I think, there's things that can be done to generate additional city revenue, to bring in infrastructure and, make it a little bit more accommodating for the people that come here and, increase the services. So I think there's definitely ways to generate additional funds and have, like a general fund. If people are, suffering, we have a city resource pocket that could deal with these individual issues. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Kathy?
Thank you. So the Sedona Chamber of Commerce plays an important role in Sedona because of the city contracts some specific services from the chamber. There's often confusion, though, about the role the chamber plays because of that. It's important to keep that perspective that the chamber's primary role is to serve the businesses that are its members. Although that's a simple statement, it's actually quite a complex mission because so many different components come into play. If the chamber and its partners are not strong stewards of our area, it's self-defeating. People come here because of our natural beauty, special events, what we have to offer. Maintaining our natural resources is key, and I think that the chamber does understand that. The chamber's been moving toward a more long-term approach to establish balance between our tourism-based economy and preservation of exactly what makes us attractive in the first place. It's important to coordinate our message, our advertising message that promotes our city. We want to make sure that we are putting it out there, that we want people that visit, that do come here for the beauty, that understand the importance of making sure that their impact is as light as possible, or we will not be able to keep this city the way that it is. We have to protect our resources. Tourism is an important component, though, to our overall economy. Tourism generates approximately 2/3 of the city sales tax revenue, and it provides many of the jobs in our community. Tourism taxes that go into the general fund pay for streets and infrastructure, parks and recreation, the police department, and more. All of this without a city property tax. The Tourism Bureau is a function of the Chamber that is funded by a bed tax, which is paid only by those staying in hotels or lodging or other accommodations. 55% of bed tax revenues are required to be used for tourism marketing. The city contracts those services from the Chamber. The contract changed last year and has changed again this year, reflecting the impact of COVID-19. The impact has not only been on the sales tax revenue, but on job stability. Everything that we look at the moment economically is through the eye of COVID-19. But that's now. We have to keep our eye on the long-range plan as well. The fiscal year 21 budget incorporates check-ins with the city of Sedona to ensure that expenditures are in line with changing health and economic conditions. There's a base budget with 2 check-in points. And I believe that that's an improved direction that provides not only flexibility, but also increased oversight by the city. And I think that this is a model that we might want to employ even going forward, not just in relation to COVID-19. Like any contract, the city's contract for its services from the Chamber needs periodic review and vigilant oversight. Those reviews give the city much more control of spending. I'm out of time.
Thank you. Holly.
I am highly supportive of the Sedona Sustainable Tourism Plan in its attempt to address issues relating to the environment, our residents' quality of life, the economy, and the visitor experience. As Keep Sedona Beautiful states, instead of focusing on attracting more visitors, the plan identifies ways in which the impact of visitors can be brought into greater harmony with the environment. And that's what I think is so important. Specifically, programs that reduce waste, encourage minimal water usage, and protect water quality, moderate use of energy and alternative forms of energy, reducing noise, air, and light pollution are of great importance to me. I'd like to see the addition of electric charging stations in Uptown, increased use of water refilling stations, encourage less consumption of single-use plastics, and encourage programs such as Straw-Free Sedona, the Oak Creek Canyon Cleanup, expanding and maintaining our trails, limiting the impacts of trailhead parking in residential areas, vigilant dark sky compliance, and dispersing visitors on trailheads, and many more tactics to progress towards a sustainable Sedona. We have an over-reliance on tourism in our town, and I think that this pandemic has shown us that vulnerability in spades. We need to attract new businesses that are not related to tourism, and we need to take advantage of new attitudes regarding virtual employment to encourage people to work from home and provide the necessary infrastructure that supports that. I think this is going to take a long time to accomplish, but we've got to start investing in that now, or we're never going to get there. If we had workforce housing which would attract younger people and those people who can be in the entrepreneurial workplace, we would reduce commuting time, we would encourage a younger population, and we could accomplish, I think, a lot more of preparing ourselves for the next generation. I also like the ability of working within the Verde Valley on economic development and also on dispersing tourists throughout the Verde Valley so that they aren't all focused on Sedona. and take advantage of our regionalism. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Jessica.
Okay. As part of our yearly discussion the city has with the Chamber about its contract, the Council asks the Chamber to redirect its efforts away from destination marketing and towards developing a sustainable tourism program. Sustainable tourism means engaging the business community and tourists in behaviors that protect the environment, address climate change, and minimize waste. It's an effort to manage behavior of tourists who come here in order to preserve the beauty and resources of Sedona for future generations. The Chamber has stepped up, and with the participation of the city, the business community, and local environmental and sustainability groups, they developed an ambitious multi-year sustainable tourism plan. I think it's a great plan that focuses on quality of life, the economy, and the environment. Like it or not, tourism drives the economy of Sedona. We do have a hotel tax. It's the bed tax, and it provides the revenue that supports important community services like the library, our parks and events, the Humane Society, the Recycling Center, the Community Center, and Verde Valley Caregivers. We need to continue to make sure our economy remains vibrant, while we also work to ensure a quality of life for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. As a reminder to the candidates, the next questions you'll have a minute and a half to answer. Kathy, you'll be first on this. And the question is, the Tourism Bureau's efforts to attract an affluent, multi-night visitor and to manage the area's 3 million visitors are funded through bed taxes. Do you support the use of bed taxes this way? Yes or no? Why or why not?
Thank you. Yes, I think I touched on that before. I do. 55% of the bed tax revenue is required to be used for tourism marketing. I do think that that's an appropriate use of those funds. As I said, we want to control the message that we put out there so that we know that we're attracting visitors who want to come here because it's a beautiful place, because it has clean air, clean water. We can't get that message out unless we control that. If we have everybody marketing themselves individually, the same message, coordinated message, may not come across. So yes, I do support using the bed tax money for coordinated tourism promotion.
Thank you. Holly.
Our bed tax is 3.5% of the lodging, and paid for only by the visitors who stay in hotels in Sedona. A number of years ago, that was increased from 3% to 3.5%, and at that time, there was an agreement made that the extra 0.5%, and this is in concert with state legislation, would be used for promotion of tourism. Promotion of tourism is a very broad base and broad brush. So we just talked about sustainable tourism. All of the things that are contained in the Sustainable Tourism Plan can be viewed as the promotion of tourism. So walkability is a promotion of tourism, what visitors do when they get here, how they arrive, when they're here, the fact that we can keep them entertained, keep them outside of their cars. All the types of things that sustainable tourism is designed to do would be completely within our power under that bed tax revenue.
Thank you. Jessica.
Yeah, I think it's important to continue to try and attract the more affluent, multi-night stay, people who want to stay in Sedona for multi-nights. I think that's what funds the bed tax and what contributes to sales tax and the well-being of Sedona. I also think that those are the people who when we do have shuttles and we do have transit, we'll feel like they're living here for 3 or 4 or 5 days, and we'll feel comfortable using alternative modes of transportation than their cars. And I'm hopeful that will help people get out of their cars. So I do support it. I think it's really the bed tax used for tourism. I think it's really important to market what we want to market about Sedona and not let other people define who we are. I think that's how we get the kind of visitors who are going to benefit Sedona as opposed to just use up our resources.
Thank you. Ed?
Thank you. All right, the bed tax. All right, Sedona has 3 to 5 million tourists a year, and I think to spend half of the revenue back on marketing, which they come here and then it goes back to marketing, like I think we could squeeze a little bit more out of that, and I think it's necessary as well because there's essential things that we need in order to throw a party this big. So I'm very much in favor of raising that tax a little bit. Nothing monumental, a couple extra $5, $6, $7 when you come here. It adds up to double-digit millions. And you know, one of the things that I was looking at is there's this amphitheater on the edge of town collecting dust. What's going on with that? I hear if somebody doesn't buy it, they're going to turn it into hotels or something like that, right? I mean, that is one of the most beautiful things about Sedona. So I'm wondering if, you know, if there's professional event production companies that are able to throw, you know, Ferry Festival, you know, the amazing things that were going on there, can the city of Sedona co-sponsor a loan with a professional event production company and run it like a business and have a profit-sharing relationship with them and bring a lot of people in? It's one of the jewels of Arizona. It's an incredible, incredible venue, and that would also bring people to Sedona and increase revenues.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you. Holly, we'll start with you on this question. Okay. Cities and towns throughout the Verde Valley have a tradition of working together. Do you see a shared vision for the cities and towns of the Verde Valley in 2020? If so, please describe that shared vision.
I definitely do. Right now there is a housing study that Sedona has embarked on, and that is going to be shared by several of the cities within the Verde Valley who have jumped onto that. I was listening to the league forums in other communities in the Verde Valley recently, in Jerome, in Camp Verde, in Clarkdale, and there's a genuine concern that each of these towns feels in not being isolated and not being alone, and the idea of working in a region and our problems we share with our other communities in our region. So there are many groups, NACOG, which is the Council on Governments, an intergovernmental group that meets monthly with all the city managers and mayors of the towns in the region, are all working together on both economic development, I mentioned housing, tourism, and other shared values and shared issues. So I do believe that we are not isolated and that we need to view ourselves more regionally, and we are viewing ourselves regionally, and I see that continuing in the future.
Thank you. Jessica.
Towns in the Verde Valley have worked together as long as I've been on council, and I believe for a very long time. Each community has its own assets and its own challenges, so I don't think in a lot of specifics we necessarily share our vision, but I think we all have an interest in the well-being of the Verde Valley. What that means to individual communities does differ, but I believe we all work together and realize that the kinds of challenges we're faced now with transit, with housing, with economic development lend themselves and must be approached in a regional manner. And I think that is happening now, and I think we'll probably find that it will continue. There will be issues that arise, more and more issues will begin to be seen as regional as opposed to individual, notwithstanding the fact that each city and town has its own particular detailed challenges.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah, Sedona is part of the Verde Valley, and there's a couple of things that I think are very important and should be addressed. So Sedona, for the large part, imports its workers from Cottonwood, Camp Verde, Flagstaff, and because a lot of workers can't afford to live here. There was a situation where a man was living with a woman who, for lack of better words, was sexually assaulting him, and he had to get out of that situation. And he worked here in Sedona, had a job, and he put up a tent while he was looking for another place to stay. He had an income in Sedona, and the police told him that it is illegal for him to tent camp in Sedona, Ordinance 9.10.010, which disagrees with the Ninth Circuit and the Supreme Court of the United States, by the way. They told him if they ever caught him tent camping here again, he'd face a $2,500 fine and up to 6 months in jail for the crime of sleeping. And he went to Flagstaff, where he couldn't find transportation to Sedona, and he ended up losing his job. And last time I heard, he was living in a forest in Flagstaff, unemployed, because the city of Sedona has a homeless ban. I think we need to treat better the people who make our coffee, okay?
Thank you.
We need homeless services here in Sedona, and we can't be exporting that problem to Cottonwood. It's not fair.
Kathy?
We definitely need a regional approach. There are things that bind us together, whether it's Camp Verde, the canyon, up in the canyon, Cottonwood, Sedona. We are bound by housing availability. Some of the people who work in Sedona live outside of Sedona. We are bound by transit and how we move people back and forth. We are bound together by how we protect our resources, including the creek and the river. These things bind us together. We are a region, and we do need a regional approach. What happens outside of Sedona city limits, whether it's in the village of Oak Creek or up in the canyon, affects all of us here. We're seen as a region. People don't often make a distinction when they're coming to visit or to see the area for the first time, of Sedona versus Cottonwood versus Cornville. They know that they're in that area. It's known for the Red Rock beauty. We need to work, all of the different municipalities need to have a way of working together. Those things do exist through the Council of Cities, the Regional Economic Group, the NICOG, all of those do exist, but we need to do that even more, and maybe even on a more personalized level, where we bring our immediate Verde Valley communities together to work together on these issues, transit, climate change and how it's impacting our community, preserving our natural resources. We do need to work together as a region on that.
Thank you. Okay, Jessica. You have lived in Sedona long enough to know there are things you like and things you would change about living here. What do you like best about living in Sedona? What would you like to change about Sedona? And what are the most important issues facing Sedona, and why?
Well, what I like the most, and what struck me when I first came here and strikes me almost every day, is the clean air, the big sky, and the landscape. That continues to resonate with me. My wonderful friends that I've made here is also something I like about Sedona. It's my friends. And I think that the amount of civic engagement in this community is astonishing. The volunteerism is huge, and people are involved in this community, and I think that's wonderful. I would like to change. I would like them to be more younger families in the community. I think that affects our schools, and it affects just the quality of life for residents here. And it also, and to do that, we need more affordable housing. I know it's the time we live in, but I think less anger would be nice. I would, if I could change anything, I would like to have it a less angry environment that we all live in and all inhabit. The other things that I think I would like to change are being addressed a lot by council. Transit, getting people off the roadways, more biking and hiking. It's time to stop, I know.
Thank you. Ed?
Oh my gosh, I love Sedona. This is one place, I did a meditation up at one of the vortexes of Cathedral Rock, and I feel like the spirit of the earth came and spoke to me and told me that this is where you're supposed to be. This land is here to protect you. And when I was doing this meditation, a rattlesnake, I fell asleep at sunset and I woke up and there was a rattlesnake gently rattling about 2 feet away from my head, just to let me know that it was there, very gentle, that he saw I was meditating and came and meditated with me. We have the dragons of Cathedral Rock protecting this area. This is a sacred area, and it's amazing. So I'm so thankful for Sedona. It's the most beautiful place I've ever lived. I think the one thing we need is to make the city a little bit more accessible to workers and the home free community. This is a workforce. The Taco Bell shut down because they couldn't find workers. That's why they shut down. A lot of people who can work just simply cannot afford to be here. So let's get some solutions for worker housing and the home free community to be able to fully integrate into the city. And make it even more vibrant, because these are also some of the most special things about Sedona is the people that live here and the people that come here and the people who travel here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy?
Well, there's so much to enjoy about Sedona. There's a great mix of people, again, our beautiful environment, and all the wonderful things that are offered here, like the OLLI program at Yavapai College, our movie theaters, music venues, art in every form, restaurants. It's really, there's always something interesting going on here, whether it's a program at the Sedona International Film Festival or up at the Heritage Museum. I always find that there's something going on here and that you meet great people every step of the way. And that's one of the things that I really love about it. That being said, there's always room to improve some things. And things that I'd like to see improve in Sedona are the services for city residents, such as increased opportunities in our parks, pools, recreation. We really need to commit and see through with the work that's being done now to address traffic and transit. We only have 2 roads in and out of Sedona, 89A and 179, and that's an awful lot of strain to put on those areas. We do need to work on that. It's a $30 million traffic improvement program that's underway. I'd also like to see our commitment to affordable housing really needs to be stepped up and improved, and of course, our commitment to climate change. So those are the quick things. That being said, we have an awful lot of strengths as well. Again, the people, the fact that things are underway and we need to see them through and expand on them, and working together.
Thank you. Holly?
Of course, I love our natural beauty and landscape and our arts and culture. I also love the people of Sedona who are welcoming, inclusive, collaborative, supportive, and have a strong sense of volunteerism. You know, one of the positive shifts from the COVID pandemic, despite its devastation, it was the people of our community, the acts of profound kindness and compassion that our residents displayed, sewing masks and gowns for our essential workers, the monetary donations that went to the Arizona Community Foundation for food security programs, outreach people did to isolated individuals, providing just contact with them, comfort and services, all of those things really impressed me and reinforced we are a community of love. What I would change, I think that the pandemic has really shown our vulnerabilities, our vulnerability to health care, and the fact that the Northern Arizona Healthcare almost was going to shut down the Sedona emergency room really frightened a lot of people, and it just showed our healthcare vulnerability, also our educational vulnerability, and the lack of economic diversity for our jobs is another area I think we need to focus on.
Thank you. Ed, we will start with you on this question. What is your position on the proposed reduction of emergency services by Northern Arizona Healthcare? What have you done or what will you do to persuade Northern Arizona Health not to abandon the emergency department for an urgent care facility? What are your views on a cancer center in Sedona, and how will you address this important community health need?
Oh my gosh, we definitely need a cancer center in Sedona. Why are we not doing that? It's amazing. First of all, it's needed, and second, it brings a lot of money to the city. We should definitely do that. Let's not cut back on hospitals. So this is an area I'm not intimately familiar with, but I would like to definitely research this and figure out exactly what the issues are, and maybe we could find ways to work around it. Health is not something we should cut down on if we don't have to, if it's not absolutely necessary.
Okay, thank you. Kathy.
Well, we do have a cancer center here at the hospital facility, and I believe it's that they wanted to expand that. I don't want to see that expansion happen at the cost of the emergency room services. It's very important for a community like Sedona to have the emergency room services. We have a significant population here on its own. Some of that population is older. We have tourists that come that often are unfamiliar with terrain and get into different types of accidents. We need that emergency room here. I do not support cutting it for the expansion of the cancer services. I think that both can be maintained. It's 12 miles basically from here, from the current emergency room to the Cottonwood Hospital. That 12 miles could make a really life or death difference to some people. Urgent care facilities are great and can supplement services by emergency rooms, but they're traditionally not 24/7 care. I want to know that we live in a community where our people can get the kind of care that they need. So I believe that the dialogue that the hospital has already backed off, at least put it away for the moment, taking away the emergency services. I think that resulted because of active dialogue, and that is the way that you go about. You need to make sure that the hospital knows that it's supported as well, and you need to let the hospital know what you need from it as a community. Without that communication, you're just letting commercial interests drive healthcare decisions for the area.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
I'm actually with Kathy on this, I'd like to say, because I was not
Holly.
familiar with this issue, but
Holly.
we need an ER in town.
The city of Sedona has a bully pulpit, and while Northern Arizona Healthcare is a private corporation, I think that the city can help bring the community and our healthcare providers together. We need to convene, I believe, a community discussion about health care here, and I would like to see the city help to provide leadership in doing that. I know during the dialogue within the community and lots of social media comments and reactions, my doctor sent out a alert to all of his patients talking about how many people in his practice lives were saved because there was an emergency room in Sedona. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important that we are able to continue it. And while I had said earlier, and was just said by Kathy, that the Northern Arizona Healthcare has announced that because of the pandemic, they're putting this decision off into the future. I think this is a perfect time for the citizens, Northern Arizona community, healthcare, and the city to get together and talk about what will keep them here.
Thank you. Jessica?
Sure. The hospital has put off making its decision about closing the emergency room and providing instead what they call immediate care. My understanding is they made that recommendation based partly on the fact that 80% of the cases they treat in the emergency room are not emergencies, and the fact that a number of emergencies actually never stop at our emergency room but go straight down to Cottonwood. But I haven't seen real statistics and real information on what that proposal is, and I'd like to see that. The hospital has put off a decision on doing anything at this facility. I understood that they were going to do a strategic plan having to do with all of their locations. And I think as part of that strategic plan, we could have great input in working with them and making the wishes of Sedona known in doing that. I think obviously, I mean, who doesn't think a cancer center is a great idea? Of course it's a wonderful idea. I just think I need to know more information, but I also think there is an opportunity for the city to be more engaged in the conversation as part of the strategic plan.
Thank you. Kathy, the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic has created change in many facets of our daily lives. What do you see as the new normal for Sedona? Do you expect things to return to pre-COVID reality? Are there changes that have become increasingly apparent to you as a result of this pandemic? What are 2 or 3 of these changes, and how will you address them as a Sedona leader?
Thank you. Yes, COVID has absolutely changed so much of what we know as our daily lives, from people experiencing isolation to people who had challenges getting food in the beginning of this pandemic when a lot of the delivery services were not coming through well. Things have changed greatly, and there are some things that, you know, will come back quicker than others. I do hope we can see a world that looks similar to our pre-COVID world. I think some changes, though, we need to embrace and use to better the way we go about treating people and the way we go about treating our environment. We did see changes in air quality and water quality when we were all in sequestered, but it's not that I want to see people sequestered, but it'd be nice if we could take that to heart and reduce our impact on our environment. The economic changes from COVID have been devastating, especially for an area like Sedona that is so tourism reliant. It's shown us that we do need to diversify our economy. That's something I was calling for long before COVID even came about. But this has certainly driven it home, where we need to have businesses that support people that live here. We need to address our housing affordability so that the people that work here can live here and use those services, putting the money back into the community. These are all interconnected and circular. One of the things that I miss most, it was so odd to walk into this room today with these wonderful colleagues and not be able to shake hands and say good luck and see maybe the upward smile. I do long for the day that we can go back to shaking hands, hugging, and greeting each other with more enthusiasm rather than the restraint that we have to use today.
Thank you. Holly.
I don't think that we're going to go back to the way things were before this pandemic. So I do think that there's a new normal. What it looks like, I really have no idea, because I think that the full extent of the impacts of COVID-19 are unknown to us today. We do know that in terms of the City of Sedona's budget, that we are projecting a $10 million negative impact due to the coronavirus. And we are really fortunate that due to our very conservative budgeting in the past few years, we will probably be able to withstand that if it doesn't get worse without, by continuing with our essential services and without having to lay off any of our city staff. But we don't know, and nobody really knows. I think that, as I said earlier, we've exacerbated some of our vulnerabilities, particularly in economic diversity, but also in healthcare, and also in in just understanding. And I agree with Kathy. The environment, we had a nice breath of fresh air, but we need to learn from those lessons and see how we can continue that going into the future, so that this is the effects of the pandemic, though devastating as they may be, give us the opportunity to look at a different vision for our city.
Thank you. Jessica.
Well, I think that what we're doing now is the new normal. I don't think it's going away tomorrow. I think that we're in for a longer haul than most of us are prepared to commit to. Nonetheless, I really think it's going to be a while before it plays itself out, and we will have to evaluate where we are there. I think the new normal, for me, is adjusting to the changes that occur regularly and not always going in the direction we like, but adjusting to them and being flexible. That, to me, is the new normal. I don't think we know what's going to happen, where we're going to be when it finally moves on to whatever the next issue is. I'm not sure that returning to the old normal, there are some things about the old normal that probably bear looking into as to whether we want to return or not to that. I do share Kathy's missing desperately connection with people and hugging and shaking hands and sitting with people and laughing. I'm hoping that part of the old normal can come back. But right now, whatever is normal, we will discover in the fullness of time.
Thank you. Ed.
I think the city is doing a very good job implementing safety protocols in all the businesses and restaurants, or excuse me, and most of grocery stores is what I meant. The city seems to be adapting to the pandemic very well, and is still accepting a lot of tourism from all over the country. And for whatever reason, the virus doesn't seem to be sticking here. I think there was 0 hospitalizations last time I checked. So that's is that not true?
It's not true, no.
Okay. Well, we gotta I like how the city implemented an increase in masks and is doing things to qualify. I mean, with this virus, it's better to err on the side of caution because the stakes are so dramatic. And I'm hopeful that we as a community can get through this and move on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Holly, you're up on this one.
Okay.
Sedona identifies as a community animated by the arts and is home to a wonderful variety of cultural events and opportunities that need the support of their public and their government. Similar to other cities in Arizona, such as Mesa, Tempe, and Scottsdale, that are arts destinations and actively support arts-based economic development in their communities, would you favor an arts tax, using lodging tax revenue, or using other municipal tools to support the arts in Sedona? Why or why not?
Well, I'm passionate about the arts. I'm the president of the Sedona Arts Center, so this is near and dear to my heart. I'm not really sure I understand what an arts tax would be, and I would need to know more about what that means. As we talked about before, the bed tax, there's a requirement that a portion of it be used for the promotion of tourism, a very broad phrase. do the arts fit into that? Perhaps. I do know from speaking with a lot of the artists in town, and we are really fortunate. We have 3,000 artists in our community. There are more things they would like for the city to be doing for them. They would like exhibition space. They would like, and we do have plenty of space that we could offer. It's a little bit complicated because we need to provide security and things like that. And we do have art that is rotated in City Hall, but it's a small space, and there are other buildings within that the city owns that could be used to promote the arts. So I do think that the city can do more for artists. We do recognize that arts are a very important part of what draws people to our community. I would like to see us be involved with more diversity in our arts as well, and to help in the small grants program I know does supply funding from the city to the arts community, and several arts associations and groups have received funding over the last few years from that program.
Thank you. Jessica.
Yeah, arts in Sedona is a very important aspect of who we are. I do know that we now have a moment of arts before the first council meeting of the month, where we highlight both visual and performing artists. We do host receptions in the council chambers. I think the Arts in the Roundabout is just a wonderful program. I'm looking forward to seeing what's put uptown and expanding them along 179 into the areas, our communities down there. We have the roundabouts, let's put some art in them. The city has a Percent for the Arts program where any development that needs a zoning change has to either put up art or contribute to the Percent for Arts program. And the bed tax already funds a small grants program, which supports the arts organizations. We fund the ballet, the chamber music Sedona. I know that community and festivals and events apply, and many of them get that funding. I'm not against a tax for art. I just don't know what that means, and I'd want to have a lot more information about it.
Thank you. Ed.
Absolutely, well said. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy this question is being asked. Artists for Sedona. Artists for Sedona, that's like one of the major things. Let's create an environment where local artists can thrive in Sedona. So right now, in order to sell art in public, the city requires a business license, which won't be issued because they don't want you doing it. In the First Circuit, New York, that's illegal. They say that that's a violation of your First Amendment right to free speech, which also protects the right to sell the art in public. The city should definitely be creating a space where local artists can make a modest living selling local art to the 5 million tourists that are coming every year. One idea that was proposed was Jordan Street in Uptown, shutting down half the street. It wouldn't affect traffic because you could just have a detour and the other half would work, get everyone to parking. But shutting that down on Saturday and Sunday and allowing local artists to set up vending booths where they could sell their art directly to the tourist population of Sedona, who would love to purchase it and support the local thriving artist scene. So yeah, we should definitely allow artists to sell art in Sedona, duh. And then another thing is possibly the city can co-fund the purchase of the amphitheater and have big music events, but also it could be used as a community space that local artists or local lecturers or different events can be. It could be open to the residents to be able to use it free of charge, and that supports the arts all the way around. Yes, we would love to see more art in Sedona.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kathy.
Sedona is known as an arts community. People come here to paint, to draw, to perform. They come here to enjoy it, to shop in galleries. What we don't have is a lot of space other than galleries for displaying our art. I think the city could do a better job of double purposing some of its facilities to showcase those arts for the over 3,000 artists that are here and a part of our community. We have the ranger station down on Brewer Road that the city owns and will be eventually developed. There are some ideas for that. It's been sort of backburnered. I'd like to see that facility a place that could showcase, since it's a historic location or a historic building, perhaps it could showcase the history of Sedona through art representations. I'd like to see the hub, which at one time was being used as a Sedona cultural and artistic venue, be something that's open more and used as a showcase venue for the arts around here. I'd also like to see the definition of arts be expanded. We do have the 1% development fee when there are zoning changes for arts in terms of murals and sculptures. I'd like maybe some of that money diverted and to be used for thinking outside the box for performing arts as well. Mm-hmm. I think we really need to support our artists here. It's part of what makes Sedona Sedona, and we do need to expand the grants program if it's possible, which will depend on what we look at the economy going forward over the next few years.
Okay, thank you. This will be the last question, and we will start with Jessica. The Sedona Community Plan states that sustainability is an inclusive and fundamental goal of the plan. What does that mean to you? What specific actions will you take to realize this goal? And what is your vision for sustainability in Sedona?
What sustainability means to me as it relates to the community plan is that every single action the city takes, one of the questions we ask ourselves is, does this contribute to sustainability? And if it doesn't, can it be changed to contribute to sustainability? That's the link for me between the community plan and what we do in terms of sustainability. I'm sorry. Can you repeat it?
Sure.
And my 30 seconds will be up.
The Sedona Community Plan states that sustainability is an inclusive and fundamental goal of the plan. What does that mean to you? What specific actions will you take to realize that goal? And what is your vision for sustainability in Sedona?
Well, we've already taken some actions. We hired a sustainability coordinator who's been very active. We put solar panels up over the parking structures in City Hall. We're creating a climate action plan to assess the risks posed to Sedona from the climate change we're going to experience, and hotter fires, bigger, longer duration, and bigger area of fires, as well as increased flooding, is part of the prediction for climate change. I have to stop now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed.
Quick question. When you say sustainability, are we talking about social sustainability or environmental sustainability?
It's not.
You need to answer the question from your perspective.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'd like to, the whole thing is like, my whole thing's worker housing. Like, that's, we got to be sustainable. We have to be able to have the people who work here afford to live here. I think that's a huge thing. Yeah, and in more ways for local residents. There's so many artists to be able to make a living, which currently is illegal, and I don't think that should be the case in an artist community. It should be legal to sell art and make a living doing it, and it would bring more people here, more tourism, more, whatever. It creates a better situation. And then if we're talking like environmental sustainability, there's this guy, his name's Elon Musk. Have you heard of him? He's amazing. Okay, the new batteries are coming out, the superconductor batteries that are able to hold the energy that we can get very plentiful amounts from solar and wind. They just can't store it very efficiently, so that's why, so those batteries are here. Like, I mean, can we look into, I've talked with some companies out in New York and Los Angeles that seem to have breakthroughs of superconductor battery technology, and if the technology exists, but let's implement it here in Sedona. I mean, it's here. This is the future, green future. Very excited about the green technologies that are out, so perhaps the city can look into it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kathy.
Well, I think everybody else has also said that sustainability is a word that's used in so many different ways now. We talk about environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, there's tourism sustainability. So it's a question that can be answered in a myriad of ways. For me, sustainability first, when I think of it, is I do think about environmental impact and environmental sustainability. We have started on that road here in Sedona, but we need to go so much further, and we need to become leaders. We do have a sustainability coordinator who does an awful lot of work and research and coming up with ideas and offers them for the city, but what we need to do is absolutely adopt a sustainability program and put it into works. Also, though, part of this is the cultural and economic sustainability, which they all tie in together. That's the whole meaning of the word sustainability. We have to have affordable housing for workers here in Sedona so that they're not commuting in and driving in from other places, which impacts our environment, right? All of these things are interconnected. I keep saying that and coming back to that point. When we think of sustainability, we need to think about being responsible for our choices, how we live our life in our daily expenses and what we choose to do and how we choose to do it. That goes for the city of Sedona as well. It needs to take responsibility for how it's investing its money, choices that it's making in what it purchases to use. All of these things have to be considered. Sustainability has to be applied in the broadest sense of the term.
Thank you. Holly.
I talked earlier about our resilience and our need to be more resilient economically, environmentally, and socially. To me, that's about being a sustainable community. And I think that in terms of our community plan, in 2024, we're going to be voting on a new community plan, or update to our community plan. So it's a perfect time for us to get together and bring the community together again to engage in what the future of our city looks like. I believe that the city has made some strides, has hired an economic development coordinator and a sustainability coordinator, but I don't think it's nearly enough. And the mayor says that the city moves with the pace of a narcoleptic snail, and I think we have to move faster. Climate change is not going to wait for us to move as a narcoleptic snail. So I think that we need to put our money where our mouth is. It's a terrible time to be saying this because we have economic devastation, but the priorities for me would be to invest more in economic diversity and in environmental sustainability.
Thank you, Holly. Well, we've come to the end of the time that we have for questions, and we had several more. The community was amazing in the different issues, and there were several issues that we didn't get to address. So I invite the community to contact the candidates personally on the other issues that you have. We didn't talk about the transportation plan or climate change or food or water. I mean, there are so many things that the community is really interested in hearing from you on. So at this time, we will move to the closing statements. And Kathy, we will begin with you.
Thank you. Well, again, I really want to thank everybody who brought this together, the League of Women Voters, the Marriott, the Chamber of Commerce, Verde Valley TV. I think it's so important to have these forums to provide a way for people to get to know who we all are and what it is that we can bring to the council. To me, the most important part of government is not to lose sight of its connection to the people it's supposed to serve. How do you do that? It's all about communication. I want to hear from people. I encourage everybody to get involved. I think it is the root of when a government functions. I have a background and experience and a demonstrated commitment to our community, and I do hope that people will support my candidacy. I care deeply, and I am asking for voter support. I think one of my strengths is that I can bring people together. It's my core values that will guide my decisions that I make as a city council member. And those decisions need to not be made in a vacuum as we look at one issue at a time. We have to see how the impact goes across all of the different areas. That's the view that I want to bring to the city council.
Thank you. Ed, you're up next.
Gosh. Thank you guys so much for doing this. This is incredible. It's been like such a pleasure to meet Kathy, Holly, and Jessica, and everyone here is so qualified. And I'm like excited to potentially be working with the people in this room to serve Sedona and the Verde Valley. My name's Ed. I'm a Gemini, which means I'm a procrastinator. So I'm a write-in candidate. My name is Ed LaRue. I will not be on the ballot, but if you guys like me, it's probably a good time to write my name down so that we know how to spell it, because it's French and it could go either way, you know what I mean? But it's been super nice meeting everyone and being here today. Thank you very much. Yeah, and I hope to see more of you guys out in town. I'll probably be around the Whole Foods, even though Whole Foods said I shouldn't be handing out papers in the Whole Foods because they don't want that. But I'm just gonna say hello and meet people. Nice to meet everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jessica.
Well, I'm running for re-election to the City Council because I care very much about the future of Sedona. And I'm willing to do what's necessary to address the challenges we face. Doing nothing in the face of challenges, for me, isn't an option. I'm a good counselor. I'm responsible. I do my homework. I'm thoughtful and very careful in the decisions I make. So that's why I'm running for City Council, and that's why I'm here tonight. And I want to thank you very much once again, Verde Valley League of Women Voters of the Greater Verde Valley, the Chamber, and everybody else who helped make this possible.
Thank you. Holly.
I too would like to thank the Chamber, the League of Women Voters, Verde Valley TV, and the Marriott for having us here today. My name is Holly Plug, and I'm asking for your vote. For 30 years, I was a senior executive in the information technology industry, specializing in government transformation and coalition building. I worked closely with local, state, and federal government officials and spent a number of years working outside the U.S., based in London. Implementing change is never easy, and many of the transformational programs we implemented required community engagement, collaboration, and transparent communications. The city will need to implement strategies to mitigate revenue losses, requiring council to make adjustments to its priorities while maintaining city services and keeping momentum on important projects and issues the community supports. We have the opportunity to rethink tourism and our recovery strategies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to thank Kathy Kinsella, Ed LaRue, Jessica Williamson, and Holly Plug for joining us today in this forum, and for all of the participation that you've done and are doing for the city of Sedona and for the communities of the Verde Valley. I would like to invite you as a community to please remember to vote on August 4th. Your vote is very important to all of these individuals. Thank you and have a wonderful day.